which phase does it typically get away from family principles, family values and principles?
Well, during the awakening, everyone moves away from family, but they do so for different reasons, right? I would say that the two generations that move away are the artist and the prophet. So the artist does it at an awkward time because they're already in midlife. Who spearheaded the divorce revolution of the 1970s, late 60s and 70s? Mostly actually the silent generation. But they had already been conformist, right? So that was really awkward for them. They went through that midlife crisis. In fact, Gail Sheehy and everyone who invented and talked about the term midlife crisis were in the silent generation. So that was very awkward. Boomers generally still had not gotten married, had no commitments yet. So that was very awkward for them. And of course, that led to the trauma of little Gen Xers, right, who were often the children of the silent, right? Boomers, of course, also contributed to the dissolution of family life, didn't want to get married, kept it on hold, thought we didn't need the institution anymore. And a record share of this generation, particularly as you get to late wave boomers, stayed unmarried throughout their lives. And in fact, early wave Xers now we're seeing, somewhere close to 20% women childless for life. So you want to look at reasons why declining fertility rate. I'm a demographer, so I look at this all the time, but that's part of it.
How much is this generation? How much of it is a bad politician at a wrong time? How much of it is bad policies like, LBJ comes out in 1964, he comes out with his policies where all of a sudden birth rate for, single mothers went from 4% to 40%. So how much do policies play a role with generations and different turnings?
Policies always play a role. Technology always plays a role. But I always say we too often see technology as an exogenous accident that sort of shapes generations, right? If someone invents the cell phone, and kids are all shaped one way, and someone invents a computer, we're shaped another way, and so on. I look at it the other way. I often look at how do generations shape technology, which I think is much more interesting. If you want to look at why we had personal computers, starting in the 1970s, I think in the 1960s, who was designing computers? Think about those generations and their mindset. It was the silent generation, the GIs, right? And their idea was a A-frame organizational pyramid. You had a leader at the top. Everyone got their marching orders. You remember how that used to work back then. And so a computer was at the top where you made decisions, right? So Rand Corporation did a study in 1967. The study was, how many computers would America need? You know what their answer was? 7. Well, they said, AT&T would need one. The Pentagon would need one. See how they looked at it? That was because of the generational mindset, how they looked at this kind of information processing technology. Suddenly you add Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, and the next get boomers, right? And suddenly they had a different vision, right? 1984 won't be like 1984. Remember the guy swinging at, into the screen shatters and all.
They spent $400,000 on that commercial. Him and Steve both put up $200,000.
It was hugely
the greatest
successful.
Commercial of all time.
It was iconic.
Right.
But it was also incredibly generational. This was their parents, kind of Brezhnev world being shattered. All those veterans of World War II and all these huge institutions. What was the new computer going to be? It's going to be a personal computer, one for each individual, to liberate each individual. And isn't it interesting, Patrick, that after that, the next several presidents, I don't care whether it was Reagan, Clinton, G.W. Bush, the elder Bush, they kept on saying, the microchip will topple democracy, dictators and autocracies everywhere. Remember, Reagan used to say that. Clinton used to say that. In other words, the new internet, everyone saw after the awakening that the impact of the internet and computers was going to be individualizing, and it was going to topple all authority structures. And for the next 20 years, that's what we thought. And that was what, Reagan used to say that all the time. With this microchip, you wouldn't even hold one up, something from Hewlett Packard or something. This will topple, right? He was great on that. Isn't it interesting? Then after the GFC, right, we enter the fourth turning, a new generation is coming of age, right? No longer Generation X, millennials. And suddenly, dictators and authoritarians fell in love with the new technology. The internet, the cell phone. We can surveil you. You just change a few of those chips and reverse the direction. We get to surveil you. We can organize hate mobs with social media. We can flick off various. This is what Narendra Modi routinely does every time there's a riot in Kashmir. He just flips off the internet and this. They can orchestrate everything in their own countries through this kind of technology. Now, isn't it interesting that is that the technology that changed that suddenly enables these authoritarians to become more powerful through technology? No. It's the mood has changed, the era has changed, the turning has changed, the generations have changed. So we use technology for a different purpose. But you see my point. The technology is being shaped by what we need to use it for.
In these uncertain times, if there's anything we need people to believe the future looks bright. So if you've heard about me saying this mission to you, we're on a mission to get 1 million people to wear this gear. And this is what we're doing. If you buy one of these hats, there's a category of buying one hat, getting the second one free. If you haven't yet worn this gear publicly, go ahead and test it out. Buy some of the gear, wear it in public, and see how many people will stop by and say, you also watch Valuetainment? You also follow PBD Podcast? I do too. Place your order. Go to vtmerch.com. Click on the link above or below. Place your order and represent the VT and the PBD Podcast gear.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.